let them know ain't nothing sweet over here. And that's it, man. Ain't nothing to talk about, ain't no beef. X know me. You know how to get at
Fredro Starr. I got one on Baby Mosa. Man, so I land in Cali. I see him in the club. You know, he a little loud. Yo, son, what up, baby? Yo, he that nigga. Yo, shorty. Yo, stuff, son. You got that? That's you. Say, yo, do you? Nah, son, I'm saying that's all you, baby.
Fredro Starr thought he'd seen every flavor of drama until he crossed paths with DMX. And their tour link-up turned into one of those quiet but heavy clashes built on style, presence, and raw respect. The energy tightened fast, even while X was balancing a lot in his real life at the time, much of which he had spoken about openly in interviews. Their connection went all the way back to the mid-90s grind, a time when voices hit like punches and presence was everything. Onyx kept their studio locked down like a fortress, and Fred always said you couldn't just stroll into an Onyx session. You had to walk in sharp, focused, and ready. So when DMX stepped inside, nobody expected anything. But the moment he opened his mouth to spit, the whole room shifted like someone turned down the temperature.
DMX was dangerous, man. Like, not dangerous, but he's like, when you around him, he's like, you don't know what's gonna happen. You know?
Fred remembered that moment vividly. DMX carried an intensity that cut through the air, the same type of raw voltage Onyx was known for. Sticky Fingers even joked that X could have been the 5th Onyx member, not because he copied anything, but because his natural energy, tone, and drive aligned in a way that felt almost mirrored. And in hip-hop, similarities like that don't always create friendships. Sometimes they spark competition. So when they came together in 1998 for Shut 'Em Down, both sides walked in ready to prove they weren't taking a back seat to anyone. Onyx came in as the hardened veterans who'd already fought through every phase of the underground, while DMX arrived as the unstoppable new powerhouse running strictly on instinct, hunger, and purpose. There wasn't much small talk in that studio. Just heavy beats, smoke in the air, and the kind of tension you could physically feel.
on the Breakfast Club trying to make me look like trying to make me seem like a sucker for love type of dude, and ain't nothing like that.
Fred later said he knew immediately this wasn't going to feel like a simple collab. It was a friendly showdown disguised as a studio session. When the track dropped, the energy blasted straight through the room and carried on to the Survival of the Ill tour, like a wave no one could slow down. That tour carried a tight, unpredictable vibe. Respect was always there. But like Fred said, when you were around X, the energy could flip in a heartbeat. When people asked him what it felt like being around DMX, Fred kept it simple.
A missing Onyx member. Guys, he could have been a missing
Somebody
Onyx
told Fredro the L shit. What they said?
They said DMX is Onyx all together.
DMX was dangerous, man. Not meaning violent, meaning intense, unpredictable, powerful. No one feared him, they just stayed alert, because X carried that wild spark that could shift a whole room's energy in a second. But despite the intensity, Fred and DMX built a real bond, a bond made from instinct, competitiveness, and mutual recognition. On tour, they'd drop for push-ups in hotel lobbies, crack jokes, challenge each other over anything, and treat even small moments like competitions between two warriors who couldn't switch off their fire. And the wild part? It all felt natural. Nothing forced, nothing fake, just raw respect built through loud spirits, tough edges, and unfiltered brotherhood. Even after the tour ended, that vibe stayed alive. They weren't inseparable friends, but they moved with the same hunger, the same edge, the same need to dominate every room they performed in.
Every stage, DMX driving tour buses.
How you gonna say
Rest in peace to X. Driving the tour.
When they hit the stage for Shut 'Em Down, fans could feel the electricity, that sense that something serious could shift backstage at any second. Both crews moved by the same code: loyalty, realness, and protecting your circle. And even when the industry tried to stir up narratives or twist stories, DMX always showed Onyx respect. But when you're dealing with men built on pride, dominance, and heavy energy, the same fire that bonds you can make things fragile. One misunderstanding can shift into tension fast, especially when no one wants to feel played. People later tried to trace their fallout to one interview or one moment, but the truth ran deeper. The tension had roots almost a decade before the 2012 interview that made everything public. Around 2002, while DMX was deep in his movie run and Fred was still close in his circle, a simple night out created the first crack. Fred had brought a woman to a premiere, someone he described casually, not a serious situation. And according to him, he even gave X the green light to talk to her.
And you had to be thorough to come in the studio type.
So who
it was just locked down
made
like
it
that.
in the studio? Who got in there?
Nobody.
It was just
At that point, nobody.
Years later, DMX retold the moment on The Breakfast Club with a comedic tone, as he often did when sharing stories from his past. He added details for humor, including exaggerated parts that made fans laugh, but hit Fredro differently. Hearing the story framed publicly like a joke didn't sit right with Fred, not because he denied anything happened, but because he felt like his name was pulled into entertainment unexpectedly. To understand why it hit so hard, you have to look at how X sometimes shared personal stories openly without filters, something he had done many times in media interviews. In one older case involving a legal dispute, his commentary later became part of a public court ruling. These examples weren't dirt. They were reminders of how X sometimes spoke freely in ways that spiraled beyond the moment. So when the Breakfast Club story spread, it collided with another layer: artistic identity. Over the years, Fredro and Sticky had thrown playful commentary online about how X's growls and high-intensity delivery resembled Onyx's gritty style. Sticky even posted a jokey poll asking fans whether DMX was a copycat or a big dog, though he later said it was just playful. But in hip-hop, originality is sacred. Even light jokes can hit deep. For DMX, his voice and delivery weren't an act. They were rooted in his personal life and inner struggles. So even the suggestion that he borrowed anything felt personal. When the Breakfast Club clip started circulating at the same time people were revisiting style comparisons, things escalated fast. Fred felt the interview made him look soft, while DMX felt the style talk questioned something deeply personal.
You know, it's going front. Oh, son, it's nothing. I mean, yo, hey, baby, son, you ain't seen nothing.
Meanwhile, he fall in love with you.
So you too?
Yeah, exactly.
Two men with the same fire suddenly stood on opposite sides, each feeling a line had been crossed. Fred responded calmly but sharply, saying, "He tried to make me look like a sucker for love type of dude. That's not me." He didn't deny the situation, he just didn't like how it was framed publicly. He even dropped a freestyle with heavy energy, not threatening violence, but sending a message that he took the moment seriously. People online framed it as a beef, but Fred insisted it wasn't about fighting, it was about respect. DMX, meanwhile, didn't trade bars or online comments. Instead, he appeared briefly on TMZ, where he brushed the situation off with humor, even cracking a light joke about height.
DMX was dangerous, man. Like, not dangerous, but he's like, when you around him, he's like, you don't know what's gonna happen. You know what I mean?
Straight up like that. Whoever don't like it, bring it, nigga. Bring it. I don't. Bring it. Bring it.
That one moment flipped the internet's mood instantly. What felt tense became comedy. But beneath the joke was a subtle message. X wasn't putting this on his priority list. Fred later mentioned another story involving Fat Joe, saying there had been tension in Miami that could have escalated, depending on who crossed paths. According to Fred's retelling, the situation cooled because X stayed inside that night. Whether or not all the details were perfect, these kinds of stories reflected how intense the scene could be at the time. DMX often found himself navigating pressure, both personal and professional, and he had spoken about this many times throughout his career. These kinds of moments weren't rare. Even Fat Joe later shared a story from overseas where he and X were under strict control from a local figure while touring. One of those chaotic international moments artists sometimes face. It showed how unpredictable life on the road could get.
He said, this guy just kidnapped DMX too. This guy kidnapped people. You were a scary guy. I said, I'm figuring it out. They said, you call this number at any time. We'll come pick you up at the park.
So when Fredro dropped emotional bars online, X didn't match the tone. Not out of disrespect, but because compared to the real storms he was navigating, online tension felt small. That's why he brushed it off with humor and moved on. The internet reacted instantly. Some said Fredro brought back that raw Onyx energy. Others said DMX diffused the whole situation with one effortless line. Suddenly, Fredro wasn't being viewed as intimidating anymore. Memes and jokes started circulating. He tried to keep calm in interviews, but you could hear the frustration in his voice. And once the internet turns something into comedy, it's hard to climb back. Major magazines like XXL and The Source covered the situation too. Their articles were short, but their tone was clear. DMX wasn't treating it like a feud, he was treating it like noise. One journalist summed it up perfectly. Fredro is rapping, DMX is handling life. Fredro's emotion lived online, interviews, clips, responses, while DMX was dealing with real personal battles he had spoken openly about for years. To X, rap tension wasn't war, it was background static. His silence wasn't fear, it was perspective. Fans eventually caught the difference. Fredro was performing frustration. DMX was surviving life. Onyx later explained they always saw DMX as family, intense, unpredictable, but real. Sticky Fingaz shared memories from the early Def Jam tour days, saying the camaraderie felt genuine. And even Fredro admitted later that he didn't truly hate X, he just didn't want his name played with. By early 2014, a year and a half after everything blew up online, Fred let it go completely. DMX never revisited it. Not in music, not in interviews, not even in passing. His silence became the final word, and strangely, that silence added to his legend. Fred eventually reflected on that period with respect, saying DMX carried a presence unlike anyone else. DMX was dangerous in that unpredictable, electrifying way where you never knew what he'd say or do next. Fred tried to go at him lyrically, but X answered by simply moving on, and somehow that made him look even stronger. While the public watched the tension fade, Fred shifted back to working on new music. Meanwhile, DMX was focused on navigating his personal challenges, the kind he had always been candid about in interviews. His life wasn't performance, it was survival. That same week, people were laughing at the sitcom joke. X was dealing with responsibilities, court rulings, and personal struggles he had spoken about for years. The contrast was real. Fred was engaging in rap frustration. X was fighting real battles. Years later, Fredro's entire tone changed. In long-form interviews, he spoke about DMX with maturity, clarity, and even gratitude. He told stories with a smile, especially one from the late 90s. When Onyx heard DMX was shooting the Rough Riders Anthem video nearby, they pulled up instantly. X welcomed them like family, tossed them shirts, and just like that, they ended up standing on top of a truck in one of hip-hop's most iconic videos. It wasn't business, it wasn't competition, it was pure, unfiltered hip-hop. Fred remembered how DMX always pulled up solo. No entourage, no ego, just him and his dog, staying all day and showing nothing but love. That said more about X than anything. When DMX passed in April 2021 at 50 years old, the world paused. His loss hit deep. Fredro dropped a simple message. R.I.P. DMX. No bitterness, no tension, only respect. Now when Fred speaks about X, it's all honor. No heat, no jokes, just the truth. DMX didn't just make music. He lived every inch of it. And by the end, whatever rivalry they had didn't matter. What lasted was the legacy. Two warriors from the same era recognizing the struggle in each other's eyes. If this story hits your heart, show love. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to Mick Trip channel to keep the energy alive and honor the legends who truly lived what they spoke.